Hey guys, and welcome to a short Hearthstone guide that I wanted to make today. And this guide is kind of directed at beginners, because one of the big problems that I personally had when I started with the Hearthstone beta is that every single deck that I was trying to just find on the internet and maybe try out and to incorporate in my own play had the disadvantage that there were a lot of cards that I just didn't have. Cards that were like elite, rare, or even legendaries. And it was always a little bit difficult to just play one of these decks and really get to know the game. So in the beginning, I was a little bit lost and I didn't really know, okay, which cards should I play, which cards work well together that I can get that are completely free, where I don't even have to buy a pack, because even for common cards, you need to get a couple of decks and then you get all these cards into the action, and of course your decks improve with the quality. You have a lot more options how you can combine them. But right at the beginning, when you kind of start to learn the game a little bit and you want to know how the cards work together, it's very, very difficult to actually make that happen without just investing a lot of money to buy all these decks and all these packs. So I want to make a quick guide today to just show you a very simple deck that you can get completely for free, where you don't have to invest any money into packs, where you don't have to buy anything, where you can just play a little bit at the beginning, have decent results with that, and then later on in the game just replace a couple of cards as you go along, as you play arena or as you buy packs and get more common cards, more rares, elites, and also legendaries. So this is just a beginner's deck, and it's just designed to give you a little bit of an idea what you can do at the beginning, and of course a little bit of a success as you are starting to learn the game and learn how to play Hearthstone. As you can see, we have a Warlock deck that we are going to work with, and the reason for that is quite simple. The idea behind the deck is that we are going to rush our opponent with a lot of very cheap creatures and trying to overwhelm him. Completely take the control of the board and then just defeat him as soon as we can. And the Warlock is a pretty good character to actually make this work, since his hero ability, the tap, allows you to just get a new card as the dispense of 2 of your hit points. So in the beginning you will see that we are losing a lot of hit points just to get the extra cards in, but then later on we'll be rewarded for that. So it's a little bit of a hit or miss deck. We always want to do the damage as fast as we possibly can and then kind of work with that. With the cards that we are using here, let's just focus on the Warlock cards first. As you can see, we completely forgo Soulfire here. The reason is pretty simple, is the card's a random card. That's also the same reason why we are not going to use the Succubus, because we really want to have a card advantage over our opponent and work with that. So we are mostly focusing on creatures and only a couple of spells. So as you can see, we're going for the Voidwalker here as a taunt. We get 2 of those. We get the Drain Life just because we can replenish a few of our own hit points, and at the same time we can nuke a couple of opponents' units and of course cards that have like only 2 hit points left. Shadow Bolt, kind of the same reason, a little bit of nuking power. We can use that against the hero itself, or then against some of the more powerful minions that are just bound to appear on the board at some point in time. With the Void Terror, this is something that we're not going to use in this deck either. A few of you might have seen a couple of streams where it's really going to be used to great effect, but in our deck it doesn't really have a huge place here, because that's not the kind of style that we're going to use here. We have Hellfire just in case if we need to wipe the board at some point. If, for example, a Hunter or even a Druid get a little bit of a board advantage over us, we can use Hellfire to just wipe the entire board and start anew. And now we're going to focus a little bit on the creatures that we're going to take here. So as you can see on the first page, we don't do too much here. We're going straight into the Raptors. We get 2 of those. We want to be aggressive. We want to do a lot of damage and have the board control. One of the reasons why we also get the Novice Engineer with the card advantage that we get thanks to the Battle Cry. And as you can see, all the common cards and all the rares and elites that I have in my own card collection, I don't use any of those. So we're just focusing on the free cards that you get when you get level 10 with your hero. Besides the Engineer and everything else, we are just going ahead and we take the Rifleman. Rifleman is a great card. Only costs us 3 mana and we can immediately dish out 1 damage against an opponent's card, so that comes in pretty handy. We have a little bit of taunt in the beginning. The Grizzly is actually a really good card for the early game. We have of course also the Raid Leader, since we want to establish ourselves on the board and kind of dominate it. The Raid Leader is a great choice here. With the Razorfin Hunter, of course, we have also the additional Summon of a Boar, so we're going to take 2 of those. We want to have the Sun Cleric here with a +1/+1. We're going for the Wolf Rider, as it's a great card to just throw out there and pressure the opponent, pressure the hero, or just snipe a card that he puts onto the deck. The Yeti for 4 mana is a pretty solid card as well, and we get the Dragonling mechanic in here too, just because we have the additional summon with the Dragonling, so also something that we can use quite well in our deck. We kind of forego most of these that you see right here. Later on, of course, as you go along and as you try to play a little bit more sophisticated game styles, as you get common cards, elites and rares, you want to incorporate all those cards into your own deck as well, or at least a few of those. But this is just for real beginners that want to kind of experiment a little bit and get to know the game, and also just have a little bit success lettering at the beginning, or even going, for example, into arena. So this is kind of the idea behind it. As you can see here, one of the units that we're also getting is kind of the last unit in the deck. We're going straight for the Reckless Rocketeer here, and the reason is quite simple. It's a very nice charge unit for the end, so it's a little bit of a sniper. We can snipe an enemy's card on the board, and we can also just finish off the hero if we get one of these. So going down from the beginning, we have our 2 Voidwalkers, we have 2 Raptors in here, we go for the double Engineer, we have Drain Life twice as well, we have Shadow Bolt, we have the Ironforge Rifleman, 2 cards each, of course, the Grizzly, just to give us a little bit of protection in the early game if we need it. The Raid Leader, of course, he buffers all of our units. The Razor Fen Hunter here, to just get a bit more of a presence on the board in case we don't get that right from the beginning. And the Sun Cleric is also nice to just help us out a little bit in the early stages of the game. The Wolf Rider itself, as mentioned before, is a great charge unit. All of these cards, we have like 2 of them on the board. We have Hellfire as well to wipe the board, to have a little bit more board control. The Yeti itself, pretty strong creature for only 4 mana with 4 attack and 5 hit points, and the Dragonling mechanic as well as the Reckless Rocketeer. So you can see right at the beginning that we have a huge focus on the 3 mana cards. We have a few here with 2 and 6 with 4. So this kind of already shows us that this deck is really aggressive and is something that we just use to overwhelm the opponent. And this is kind of the most important thing to note. This is not the most well-rounded deck, but it's a deck that gives you a huge amount of success, especially in the early stages of Hearthstone when you want to experiment a little bit. And with this deck you can have like huge win streaks. You will lose every now and then, and don't be too afraid of your opponent's area of effect spells when he's trying to wipe the board, because that will happen eventually. But with all those creatures that you use, you will be able to establish that board presence fairly on once again. And just to give you a bit of an idea of how this deck works, we're going to play now one example, just a quick match to show you how exactly you could around with this. So we found our opponent, and we actually have a warrior, so this is going to be a little bit tricky since the warrior is pretty strong against decks like this. Shadow Bolt is something that we definitely want to use, but we don't, well, we kind of need one at the beginning. We're a little bit unfortunate here as well. We're starting first, which is currently in the Hearthstone beta not really the best thing to happen, and with that like swap here going up to 4 mana card again, it's definitely not the best deck for us to start out with. So we have to have a little bit of a look how that's going to work out for us. Beginning, there's not much to do, but keep in mind that once again, we want to establish a board presence and we want to put aggression on our opponent. And with a hunter, sorry, not a hunter, but of course a warrior facing us, he probably has kind of the same goal. Especially with the weapons that the warrior has, he can establish a lot of board control, be very aggressive here, and we're just going to find out what exactly he has on the board. So we're starting things off with a raptor here at the beginning. Want to, of course, just make sure that we have that presence on the board, and every single time when we don't know what to play or when we don't really have anything to play, we're just gonna go for the life tap and we're gonna get another card into the game. That's kind of the whole idea behind this entire deck and why we choose the Warlock to do so, because we want to have a card advantage of our opponent. Not quite sure what he's gonna do here, but apparently he's focusing on a bit more, yeah, a lot more higher level creatures. That's what it looks like. So we're going to use the chance to just use our charge here as well, doing the damage early on and pressure him as much as we can. It's all about the damage and the board control, just getting that out. One of the main reasons why we don't have a lot of taunts in the game here. And this is of course a very basic deck, as highlighted earlier. It's really for beginners if you want to try out what exactly you can do, learn a little bit what your opponent is able to do. And then as you go along and as you win a couple of arena matches or buy a deck, you get more common cards and you can start to just swap cards. For example, you might have seen in my deck earlier my card collection, the Ghoul, which is a great card at the beginning to use here. Later on, of course, it's also pretty nice. But you want to make sure that you kind of have a little bit of a balance there. So as you go along, you just start to swap out cards with stronger ones that you collect along the way, and that always helps you quite a bit. So we're going up to the 4 mana now, and as he doesn't play a lot, you can already see that we have a couple of options here. We can go for a Taunt, we can go for the Yeti, and at this point I'm actually just gonna play the Yeti here. Doesn't really seem to have a lot that he could do against it. We can still attack with a charge here. So he's playing this fairly passive, which is actually a little bit surprising. Usually most warriors that you have out there are a little bit more aggressive with their style of play, especially when they're able to use the weapons to get the presence on the board. But he, for some reason, doesn't have a lot that he can use here. But it's also like we are now establishing, of course, our board presence here. And that really helps us. He has a couple of elite cards here, too, that he's already using. Going for the execute here as well. And you can see that he's just trying to get rid of the cards that we have on the board. But we have a pretty good presence here. With 5 mana, we have now several options. We can, for example, go straight for the taunt here. And we can play the summoning. So we have a really good presence on the board. Didn't need to life tap just yet, which of course just helps us, and we are still pressuring him. And from now on, we can either just play both of them next round, both of our hunters. We can go for the life tap. Depends a little bit on what he's going to do. He's of course trying to just establish this Berserker right now and making us feed it, but we still have the 4 damage here, so we can just go in, can make sure that we have the board control and not him. Take him out, attack then with our charge unit, the Wolf Rider, that already did a good job. And we still have 3 in the game that we can use here, and that's also something that we are going to do right away. Go for one of the Razor Fin Hunters that we have, and the rest of the units just being used to immediately go for the attack. And I mean, we're putting him down to 19 already, so let's see how that's going to work out for us. At this point, he really has a lot of problems. He needs to get rid of everything that we have on the board right now, and he's trying to just save himself with a with a taunt here. But we have Drain Life, we can still start to tap, and that's probably what we're going to do pretty soon. But first of all, we're going to use Life Tap. Even have a Cleric here, and this is just one of those things that we can really just utilize to our advantage. We're going to sack like 2 cards to make sure that we can take him out and then still have the advantage on the board. So we get the Sun Cleric into the game, and we need to deal 5 damage in total, so we're gonna just buff our Razor Fin Hunter. Gonna sacrifice him. Gonna sacrifice our Dragling here, and can still dish out the damage that we have on the board right now with the rest of the creatures. Pressure him even more, and play another don't have the mana for it, we already tapped, so at this point we can't actually do a whole lot more. But that's kind of the time when he's probably gonna start using bigger creatures, if he has them. But we still have that presence that we were talking about. Another taunt coming in for him, probably gonna play something else. And with a shield block, getting 5 armor, so he's really starting to play a bit passive and just trying to just save himself. But I am not quite sure if that's actually going to work out for him. We have the Rifleman now 2, that's additional damage that we can bring into the game here. And let's just see, we have to do another 5 damage. Not a lot to play here, could go for the Drain Life, and that's actually exactly what we're going to do. Play the Drain Life, take him out with a Cleric at this point. Actually, to be quite frank with you, we can still play him, dish out 1 damage, kill him with him surviving as well. We're gonna tap again so that we can prepare for the next round. Perfect timing for a Reckless Rocketeer, really good for him, can use him as a finisher then later on, or to snipe one of his minions if he now plays a pretty big one. We're still doing damage and negating everything that he puts on the board, so he's always a step behind us. And that's kind of the strength of this. And keep in mind that even if he's able to somehow wipe this board, we still have a lot of cards that we can play here. We can immediately play the rest of the cards down, and that's also what we're going to do. Even now with the charge, he can only take out our taunt. This is one of the main reasons why we didn't play the second just yet, because we did not really need it. And we are just all about pressuring the opponent. Well done. And he actually has 2 of them, so this is when it starts to get a little bit iffy for us. We need to be a bit careful about this, but we still, with the cards that we have, as mentioned before, we are in a really good spot. We can just trade our boar here, can take the first one out, have of course now the option to just exchange here, and that's most likely also what we're gonna do. Gonna go for the exchange here right away. And now the board is once again empty, so we're gonna play our first taunt. We could life tap here, but we're going for the Reckless Rocketeer first. We want to pressure him even more, and he can't do anything about it without taking out the taunt first. Have a couple of options for our next turn. That's exactly what we need. And he's already down to 10 HP. Keep in mind that the board presence is usually a little bit more important than just taking down the hit points of your opponent's hero, because if he has the board presence, even if he's already down to like 5 or less, he can do a lot. And especially the Arcanid Reaper is now doing a lot against us. So that's when he's starting to get really strong. He gets his Pirate into the picture as well, so he has a lot here. He's probably going to use the Arcanid Reaper right now to take down the taunt. At least that's what he should do. A little bit hesitant, our friend. He seems to be a little bit unsure what to do now. Maybe he just forgot to end his turn, but I would be very surprised if he doesn't even try. Apparently finally realizing that he has to go through my taunt first if he wants to do anything here. That's exactly what he does. Using this Arcanid Reaper to make as much happen as he can, and that's actually like a pretty good choice on his side. So we are not even going to bother with this one, because we're going to use our Bolt, take him out immediately, and now we can attack again with the Reckless Rocketeer. And we can still play another taunt, so he has to go again through the taunt. And now we have the choice of either tapping or using the Hunter. We could use both, but for the next turn, depending on the card that we get, I actually want to have like an extra card at my disposal. So I'm just going straight for the next one, and next turn we can play both of them. And maybe even the third card that we are bound to get, of course. So he's already down to 7 hit points, and he will lose in the next round if he doesn't take anything down. So he has most likely used the Arcanid Reaper here to take out our taunt. Has of course a couple of cards that he can play as well, and he can always armor up, which makes it a little bit more difficult for us. Exactly what he's gonna do. And he's already playing his own taunt, so he's just trying to get out whatever he has here. Probably now killing our Grizzly Bear. Oh, ending the turn even before doing that. That actually works quite well for us. So we can now just go in, exchange the Rocketeer here, kill his taunt, attack right away up at the top, and then we just go for the rest of our minions. So we have, first of all, the Razor Fan Hunter, can go straight for the Dragonling as well, getting a full board here. And we could play the Ironforge Rifleman, which I'm not gonna do just to have the option of attacking him later on. We're gonna tap again. And if he plays a creature in the next turn, we can use the Battle Cry of the Rifleman to just limit already the hit points of the creature. We have already a lot of damage potential on the board, and he has a huge problem, because even if he armors up, we are able to take him out here. We have more than 8 damage, so he needs to do something. He either needs a taunt, or he needs to go for the Arcanid Reaper. And keep in mind that he had a lot of commons, a lot of like also rares in this game so far, in Elite earlier. So we are using a completely free basic deck, where no cards are involved that cost us anything. He didn't make like the best plays, and he made of course a couple of mistakes. But keep in mind, this is not a deck that's going to win you a tournament or anything. This is a deck that is designed to make sure that you have early success in the game and get to know Hearthstone a little bit once you get access to it. So at this point, I mean, we don't even need our raid leader here anymore. We're going to play him anyway. We can check out what would be our next card with the Engineer. Get even the Drain Life, so you can already see with 7 hit points there's nothing that he can do against us. We're going to just take him out, completely ignoring his cards here, put him down, and end the game in our favor. So this is kind of the rush deck that we're going to use, and I hope that it will give you a lot of success. In the beginning of Hearthstone, it should definitely help you. With the Warlock, you have a great tool at your disposal, just investing 2 hit points into an additional card and gaining not only a card advantage but also the presence on the board itself. So I hope that you enjoyed the short tutorial, and if you get your beta key or then later on the game itself, that this strategy or this idea helps you a little bit. It's not the craziest thing, you've probably seen it on other streams so far as well, but that's something that you can use in the beginning when you don't have access to a lot of packs or cards. So I hope that you have success with it. If you liked the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up on YouTube, subscribe if you haven't just yet, and leave a comment if you tried the deck and have any problems, or if you had success with it and just want to share it. See you guys soon, hope you enjoyed the video, and see you next time.